All right, everybody. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Good morning. Good morning. Hope you all had a good start to the week. Let some people filter in here. Unfortunately, I was unable to stream at the start of the week. Little family health emergency. My daughter's been quite under the weather, so I'm not going to be able to stream too long today, but I have some good updates. Good stuff on old Bitcoin. And as I've mentioned many times, I know you guys have been wanting to see a lot of these charts yourselves, be able to look at them, play around with them. It's coming. It is coming. This is the new version. All right. This was the old version. Some new JavaScript coming. Still got some work to do, though. The tooltip is going to have the wrong dates here. The correct values, but the wrong dates. But this is finally as an interactive chart getting a nice, nice long lower left to upper right power channel. Remember, this is a proportional network growth, not a constant exponential growth, but a proportional log growth. So for every 13% increase in the life of Bitcoin, the price will double. That's what the math turns out to be. It's totally different than exponential. Good morning, Oscar. Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy days for sure. Thank you for tuning in. I was just saying, a little bit of a health emergency for the fam at the start of the week. My daughter's been sick. Still is, so it's going to be slightly limited, but I had to get back and show you guys some stuff. So again, I know people want to see this. It's coming. Hello, Jukebox. The reason is for consistency. You can change for sure. And that might be an option. I'm not sure. It just depends on how quick I can get the thing to render. Working all through it. But I think Sminston who's a good follow, very good at putting some readable charts out. He tried to manipulate the power curve to see what was the best starting date and give you the best R squared. And I think it was something like July 2009 instead of January 2009. I think that's fine, like to try to experiment, but it does make logical sense to start from the beginning of the system. So system 1, Genesis block, day 1, which is not day 0 like financial calculations, but day 1 it makes logical sense. So that's for sure going to be a mainstay of the chart. But having the option to play around with would be good. But again, when you see this on log, I think it makes a lot more sense. And get some stats down here for the different things, so you can see like these different bands would have different R. So this is a quantile regression. Now this is not the multiple that I usually do, but it's an OLS, which I always have, plus the quantile. So these lines are always going to be straight, but at different sort of angles, depending on the data. Plan C, Cena, I think some others, maybe even Sminston. Sminston for sure, actually. He's been working on you can try to squeeze this line here and then squeeze it down here. You can do that, like with an exponential decay, but I'm just doing straight up power quantile regression, so it's just basically goes through. Each line is its own independent regression, basically. So you get different R squareds. You can see OLS here is 96%. Right, the main black line. And then you can see the others have different ones. All right, so the 0 with 81%, not that amazing. But as you get towards the middle, right, as you get toward the median, you get basically the same thing. All right, so you can barely see. 96%. It's basically the same. So the median for the quantile, the OLS, which is the sum of least squares, a bit slightly different analysis. They'll all give you a similar R squared, which is good for now. But so we can see where we are is obviously an extreme. But I wanted to show you this. I wanted to show you guys this as well, because I've been trying to do this more of a manual way before, but again, when you get some help with AI, it's always good. So these are the deviations from the power regression, the actual OLS. And I think this is also helpful. Okay, so a technical trading view person would draw lines here and try to predict where the top would be later on. Fine. But obviously you can see that the deviation from the power curve has always changed. Although the slight warning, and this is why I show you guys all the time, this is back to the old Regapart, the difference between evolving and actual, right? So these deviations I'm showing you are here, but this actually didn't exist at the time, this line. It was even higher. So again, that's another chart that I can do, but it's just a lot to go through. So the actual trend was not as high, the actual multiples like here. But if you go deviation from the trend, you'll get a very high percentage. Anyway, the point is to check the relative stabilization, right, of how price moves. Scares us a lot. But if you take the all-time power trend, we can sort of see. The important thing, I think, is to look at how bad it can get, because we're in a bad stage, right? So actual is green, right? 44, crypto winner 55% below the trend, which didn't exist at the time, but exists now. 50%. All right. Was that the same thing I just zoomed in on? I thought it was different. All right, yeah, so it gets down to 60% in the actual crypto winner. And then this one's an interesting one, right? The puke of 2018. This is about when I drew the power trend for the first time, was right here. And it was higher, I can tell you. So it was like actually more here. It almost acted as a support that broke. But anyway, from the all-time trend, you go down like 40% down, and then of course the mad season down 55%. And then that takes us to today. Or not really today, but the last cycle up and down. All right, so down 58%, 59, 57, and then here we are. So regardless, right, when the Malox moments come, we're close to the extreme. Doesn't mean it can't get worse. But what's also interesting then is if we smooth it out, right, and we remove this, and we just smooth it out, we can see the 30-day and then the 365-day changes. And, here's the 2021 boom, but these are daily deviations, daily. All right, so this means up or down 2/3 of the time. 7%. 7%, a little bit more now, on a yearly range. On a 30-day range, it's can be less, right? So only 2 to 4%. But what I want to do, and I don't have it ready for you, is I want to obviously compare these deviations with TradFi, so we can look exactly, at Apple or even the monetary base. And all those things are moving against exponential trends, not power trends, which is wild. It's totally different. Next thing I want to show you guys, which obviously, as you know, I'm quite cautious with my calls, and I'm just quite cautious. But as I said, when people were saying the 4-year cycle was over, right? In this area, people were saying the 4-year cycle is over, it's going to stay on the power trend. I said, let's wait until January, February, see what's happening. Now we know what's happening. And it's interesting. I've heard people still try to say, like right now, that the 4-year cycle is over. There's nothing to confirm that the 4-year cycle is over. The only thing that would confirm that the 4-year cycle is over is if we go to like, 200,000 by the summer. Possible. But this is where I think it always helps to be cautious. There's a lot of hopium right here, a lot of hopium. And you wouldn't even need to say hopium. You just say like believing that this time was different. And then that takes me to this. Ansi, my Finnish friend, reminded me of the old Bitcoin spiral. It's a great chart from the Rational Root. I'm sure you guys will follow. Yep, that's right. I mean, especially the way you measure it. Some people measure volatility by, options or deviations. But anyway, so this is quite interesting. Right? We have Bitcoin time every 4 years. You have the blocks where the halvings occur right here, right? So Genesis 0, 210, 420, 630, 840, which we're not to this one. And so a couple things to look out for. So the halvings, right? And the idea was that, a year and a half after the halving, usually you have a peak. Well, where are the all-time highs? They're here, which translates into, a year and a half after the halving. Another year after that, the bottoms. And then you go back to the halving. I mean, again, I don't want to get too voodoo about this, but Bitcoin has its own clock. So if we're talking about bolstering our understanding of where we could be at any given time, I mean, basically it's interesting, he kind of shows all-time highs as they occur too. But the last all-time high, right, before it breaks down, is always about 78,000 blocks after the halving. And then you only have to go another 50,000 blocks to the bottom, which is like a year. So again, I'm not saying it's gospel. I'm not saying it has to happen, but I will say again, you guys know I'm not a big predictor. I'm always practicing caution more than anything, but I don't see anything not intact yet about a 4-year cycle. So just have to keep at it. Do we bottom out in December of 2026 like we did here? Do the Democrats, are they some sort of an impetus where they come in and then sue the living daylights out of Trump's crypto endeavors. I'm not saying that's the catalyst. I'm just saying that could be a exacerbating factor. I have no idea. Or does it just come down to block time? So this chart, again, besides being on linear, actually, let me take this off and see if this might, so here's back to log linear. My tooltip is working better. So two different ways to look at this now. You have the quantile model, which has every different line is slightly not parallel to the next, but doing its own sort of thing. We're as good as at the bottom. Or we get the multiple model, which again, it's less precise. It's less precise because if it was linear in log linear space, I mean, if it was a straight line, it would be more precise, but I've talked about that before. But it's a guide, right? So maybe you could get down to 40, 50, but that would be just an absolute bottom. So again, in the interest of not panicking and just knowing where we are, is where we are. Assuming we close February at the same price we have right now, 67K. It honestly looks like nothing different under the sun. It's pretty wild. We go in these booms, we go in these retracements. And here's another one I want to look at more is always, it's actually a power curve as well, but it's just showing you raw numbers. It's just doing an index to Bitcoin for major currencies and gold and silver. So we go 10 years, 10 years. Bitcoin was, I don't know, $300, $400 at this time. All right, so every currency and gold and silver relative to it would be down here now. Silver. Yeah, this does go all the way till today, but I can't. My tooltip doesn't work exactly. Actually, I can just show you here. No, I can't because I do only one decimal. But look at this, 40% per year for all currencies. Japanese yen the worst. That means Bitcoin grew from this point 10 years on average, 40% per year. 37% for the franc, sterling, 39, 38, euro. Only 29% for gold and silver. But the net is you have like 1% of your value remaining. Had you gone into those currencies at that time 10 years ago and not gone into Bitcoin. So again, in the interest of not freaking out, if you take this thing at least to 10 years, we look pretty good. And of course, if you go beyond 10 years, I mean, doesn't even matter. This is the height of the last boom. Sorry, not the last boom, but the 2013 boom. Your Bitcoin would lose you 4x against all currencies, gold and silver, but then you just wait a little bit longer and you're in the green. Bring it closer till today. If we help ourselves, now let's hurt ourselves. Let's take the top of 2021. All right, somewhere there. All right, so as Bitcoin was 60, 70, whatever you bought it at, right? The second peak of 2021, this peak right there. You go way down. Peter Zion was loving life here, acting like he knew everything about Bitcoin. But then you just wait a little bit and you're back. Now, we're pretty close to those prices, right? 60,000, 70,000 right now. So it's absolutely true. You can wait, over 4 years and still net be about the same. Question just remains, how much longer before this reverses course? Right here we're roughly the same. Even gold and silver now are up quite a bit with their big boom. 25, 30% CAGR year on year, better than Bitcoin. And then of course, we could help ourselves and buy when Peter Zion was on Joe Rogan saying that it was $17,000 overvalued. At 16,000, all currencies are way down. But gold and silver are treading water, close. Silver's boom even took it above for a second, for one day on January 29th. Let's look at silver and dollars. All right. So far, it's not going to break the old multiple record. It's got to close above 119. Gold's doing all right, though, holding its own. $4,908. If it stays above 5,000, basically, it will be an all-time high relative to its exponential trend. Now I want to do Bitcoin gold and Bitcoin silver. Give me a second. Again, it's definitely time for caution. I'm still super bullish at these levels as far as time to buy. But DCAing, as we talk about often, is not a bad strategy. All right, so here's Bitcoin silver. Nice governor of perhaps how low Bitcoin can go. All right, we set a bottom at 718 ounces of silver per Bitcoin on January 28th. That's what we set, literally set, a record relative to the trend. And it's retraced. I mean, it's fell back, but it's going to test it again. Right. Still moving up. Bitcoin's still trending positive here, so it could, the 0th percentile is now 720 instead of 718. 2 more ounces of silver already as the bottom. We'll have to see. Gold's still a little bit different, not as extreme even. All right. And I'm pretty confident here that we don't go below 8. Maybe we touch 8, maybe we don't, but giving gold bugs 1 Bitcoin for 8 ounces of gold, especially when Eric Sprott says he's out of the metals. Or no, who told me? I think someone said last week it was Rick Rule. Rick Rule's out of the metals already. So these are good governors on value for a store value asset such as Bitcoin. But look, I don't want to lecture too much, guys. I mean, we can look at other charts if you want. I'm curious what people think about this good old Bitcoin spiral. I mean, it's pretty amazing. This was end Jan, so we're already, here. Oh, maybe not that, maybe here. Point is volatility drops, all right? Even look at 30-day volatility, which can be more helpful sometimes. Yeah, we can go up or down 10, 12%, but compared to, the olden days, right? That's what this chart is showing percentage-wise, right? Just smoothing out. Perhaps the opposite of what you would think with all this carnage in Wall Street or whatever. Yeah. I have it in some charts. I need to put it in more, you're right. Hash rate as well. A very good marker. Let me see if my market cap per hash is still going. But it's hard to get too worried about this, right? As a store value asset, you see the volatility decreasing. All right, generally this is slightly down, right? This was getting close to 97%. I don't know, 6 months ago. So it's falling. Maybe we'll go back into the 95% range, but still, That's 95% less deviation than the average. And I just encourage you to think back to October, November, the bullishness, this time it'll be different sentiment. You know, I wish it was different, right? In the fact that we barely had any boom. Like, look at the 2021 volatility, right, on the 30-day. Yeah, you would go up a few times, right? Probably November and can't even see that. It's too small. Even the November actually was way lower. This was the first boom, right? Basically here. This means up or down 2/3 of the time, representation of daily moves. And it was like completely muted from the introduction of ETFs till now. So it was different this time. It's just not as people were saying. So credit to the rational root for this nice spiral. Very good way to look at it. This one, again, I need to work on a lot, but this is market cap per hash, log log. All right, and when we go up, again, we're booming. So hash rate relative to market cap market cap relative to hash is high. And we actually are, you know, quote unquote overvalued relative to the hash rate, which typically is a signal of, I know this is a bad log log chart, but it is log log, and you can see just like 2021. So we've been here. Just like 2017, so we've been here. And if this thing comes down, right, to levels like this, or even, see, this is where the relationship isn't as good. It's only 86% R squared. So even in 2022, it only came back to the black line, right, to the regression. But still, theoretically, this is saying we have a high valuation relative to the hash rate of Bitcoin. But as you can see, it's not a great relationship, right? Because this line is going down here, and then the actual slope kind of seems more shallow. But anyway, I'll work on that. This might be better with a quantile regression. This is still my multiple analysis. Yep. Great words right there. Yeah, I mean, it generally only improves. I know that people like to argue about some things around the edges, or perhaps say that, like we talked about, Nick Carter is making this claim now that there's still some gatekeeping around preparation for quantum resistance. But these types of arguments, if you've been around long enough, as I know you have, you see them again and again. So they, I don't want to say you want to be like sort of immune to them, or they're not worthwhile discussions. But to me, the fundamental value is we're accreting on base money. All right, we have the curve, which sets us a nice goal, and it sets us, this is exactly the time where we should look at value, right, relative to the curve. But probably more than that, even, which is why I keep trying to survey this stuff, is the monetary base itself. So the relationship is not 1-to-1, but it's certainly, generally works out where if the money goes up, Bitcoin will go up. Like here it didn't. Here it went down, and Bitcoin was going up. Now Bitcoin's going down, and the money supply is about to go up. But as long as that relationship generally stays intact, we can see that there's a network for money that does the same thing as Bitcoin. I think I showed this on Friday, did I? This is the Fed wire. It's another good thing. Well, that is one theory, sir. That is one theory. For me, it's always generally caution, and I'm glad I wasn't saying, we're going to new highs in October, November. So let's wait till January, February to see what's happening. Now, again, anything can happen. Like it's just showing you probabilities. Like we could go, like I said, maybe we boom here this year to 180 or something, and gold and silver stay constant. So we get kind of back to the gold and silver regression, OLS, basically a trend line for gold and silver, Bitcoin relative to gold and silver, because we're super cheap right now, as we showed here, gold and silver, unbelievably cheap for gold and silver holders. There are different things happening this cycle. That's true. Gold and silver are booming. They weren't really in the first years of Bitcoin. No one knows, but what I will say that I'm sort of satisfied with is I was not one of these people telling you that the 4-year cycle's over. The 4-year cycle shouldn't mean anything anyway. I mean, it's a clock of Bitcoin. And even if people sort of think that it shouldn't make any sense, or it's voodoo or whatever, I mean, you just look at the numbers. I should put this in table form because it's remarkable, right? I mean, even just looking at it, it's remarkable. It could repeat. Probably not the hard and fast answer you're looking for, but morning, Coop. Yeah. Then we got to look at the broad money supply, see how fast repurchase agreements are growing. Okay, one thing here is, let's show you this again. This is updated. I hadn't updated this in a while. So, still on schedule. Nice little power curve here. Bitcoin, interestingly, is growing as a network would relative to the Fed. And the Fed grows exponentially, but Bitcoin grows in power even here. Even though we have obviously this is so small, right? 22 trillion in value over the course of a year. And by the way, let's see when it topped. All right, if this does the same thing, then everybody better pay particular attention to the 4-year cycle. I mean, if we top in this, if we start going down here in dollar terms over the course of a year by like, say, August or June, and this number just starts going down, you know, again, generally trending higher, then it's scary how much the 4-year cycle matters to sort of Bitcoin's penetration versus other assets. Is this a record low number-wise? Yes, it is actually. So Fedwire, which does $1.1 quadrillion in payments a year, only 51 times larger than Bitcoin at the moment. The last record was 57. And yeah, we could bottom out. Now, you'll remember, I was always thinking that this, particularly with the revenue one, which I'll show you, was kind of showing that it's an argument against the 4-year cycle, like saying the 4-year cycles kind of might be up. But now I'm even rethinking that, especially in light of everything else. But this is the weird one to me. I'll show you. So this one is weird because it was such a, the effect, again, just this is a very smooth number, yearly number. But the effect of the halving on miner revenue this time was massive, right? They were just shooting up to 13, 14, 15 billion a year, and then you can see it was just sawed off. And then went down, and now up. And then I have to admit, this is, I don't really know, this is not ideal, I would say. Like it, you would think that we would be multiples higher, and we're not. It's weird, right? Because the halving sawed off the gains every prior time. You can see like it gets, but then it recovers and goes way more, right? Halving here, flattened it, recovered from here and went way more, way more. You know, just a nice slow indicator of growth and growth and growth. I am surprised that this is like, this would make more sense to me, let's say, that on the cyclicality of Bitcoin, if this was, I don't know, 2 times higher or something. Of course, we could try to measure some change, but in some sense, it's a function of this chart. But I have to admit, I'm sort of perplexed here. Because like you could make the argument that this is actually the most bullish, because you know Bitcoin's more adopted than ever, yet miner revenue is actually not that high. Gold and silver revenue is huge, you know, $400 billion a year for gold right now. Bitcoin's only the same level it was in the 2021 boom. It's kind of weird. So this is, to me, the most perplexing when it comes to the validity of the 4-year cycle, if that makes sense. It's not very helpful, those numbers, but in any event. A TA on TradingView would do something here, like draw a Fibonacci connecting these and make it seem like we know where the price is going, but I don't. Certainly less volatile. Another thing I was thinking about, which would be cool to show you guys, is look at the delta between the 50th. Let me just show you. This should work. This is still very buggy, but I'm working on bringing it to you guys. So let's look at the delta between the median quantile and the OLS. All right, so here it's 5 grand. Right, at the next top, it's 3 grand. Wait, no. Did I just say that right? It's 500. Sorry, it's 500. It should be going up. Here it's, 3 grand roughly. And here, 7, 8 grand. It's two different calculations. We'll just have to see. But the median might be a more reliable indicator in the future. How can you not like Bitcoin? Also, if I had to guess, I think gold does something like this. Soft, sort of gentle retracement of years. Again, it could double from here. I have no idea, but I'm just saying it. Something like this looks reasonable. Silver as well. Something like this looks reasonable, where it retraces very quickly to a base. 15 to 1 seems quite extreme. And I will show you, by the way. We can update that. Sorry, which one are you at? I presume you're asking about this one? Yeah, it's not relative to any cycle. It's just relative to actually the data. So this one is different than my other one, but basically these lines are basically you run a power regression. All right, so you're looking at things like standard deviation, the average, correlation, but you're drawing different lines in parallel. So all 4 of these lines on the chart are just looking at the price, nothing else. And they're picking, okay, if I could roughly pick where the median would be, where would the median be? If I could roughly pick the top lines, where would the top line be? And they're running a power curve on that. So you'll see that the R squared is different each one down here. So it's not relative to cycles. This is just a function of all the data that you have and picking percentages. And the wild thing is there's just no financial asset that runs like this in this straight line on log space. It's crazy. So Apple stock would not look like this. The gold price, right? So here's silver over the long term. We can make a straight line out of it, but only on log linear. This is linear at the bottom. And of course, it's super variable. I mean, be way above, way below. But that's the trend. That's the best fitting trend line for silver is an exponential trend at 55% R squared. And I suspect, why would one suspect anything different than a retracement to the trend? Eventually. You could say silver is going to be remonetized. The United States is going to buy all the silver in the world. It's possible, but so yeah, it's just each line is a regression of proportion. And roughly the idea is that you will get a doubling of this line for every 13% increase in the life of the system. So if you picked, let's just pick here, right? Let's pick a top. Let's pick a cycle. So here, the OLS itself is $97 here, $100. The price was 10x that, right? But if we look at $100 on the OLS, or let's just start at even 100 right there, 100. Let's see when the OLS doubles. All right, so this is May 2010. And we can see that it doubles in shoot, I forgot this doesn't work on log. Sorry. May 2010 is the beginning. I got to take this off. Hold on. Let's do this. This should work now. Yeah. See, it's still buggy. All right. OLS is $100 in December 2013, right around the top, which was in November 2013, but $100 in December 2013. Let's go to $200 on the OLS. August 2014. So at that time, it took 8 months to double, or the translation is that's about 13%. Bitcoin got 13% older in that time. That's 8 months. But this is proportional, so it's different than exponential curves like this or this, which are constant. And so now we double a lot longer, about every 2 years. So we can go to the end of 2022, 40K, right? 40K is the OLS you see right there. At the end of 2022, let's see when we hit 80K. Right, the end of 2024, almost. So this was doubling a little bit faster than every 2 years. We're about 2-year doubling right now, slightly longer even. And that's what Bitcoin does. All right, let me pull this one up. So gold relative to silver. Again, I highly doubt it's going to go down to 15 and stay. Here it went to 30. In April 2011, the silver high of 55 or 54 bucks, wherever it was. And now we're here. This is bad for silver bugs. You know, it's better. If you look at this line, it's better. Basically, the lower this is, the better it is for silver bugs. So as you can see, this dotted line is sort of not as extremely bad as it was here in the 80s. But still, smooth it out. That is the trend. Morning, Kurt. Man, do you ever sleep? Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, it's going to be close. You'd look at these things. This is the most important thing, the slope, which is actually the power. It's a stats term. Intercept slope. It's kind of the same for all regressions, but it's not exactly a slope. But anyway, they should have something like this. They should tell you what it is. Well, let's just do it together. What is it, BitBo? Yeah, they don't. It would be better if they told you the coefficients. I don't see them. But it's, you know, it is different. You're right. The difference is data, right? So let's see how far back they go. Yeah, they don't go as far back as me. They start on at January 2011. I go further back, so I have more data. You can argue that my data is not as good, but because it's thin here, right? Like you could argue that we should just not do here, but I go all the way back to the Bitcoin Pizza Day price, and this is Laszlo not getting a great deal. You can see he sold it relatively cheap. 10,000 Bitcoins for 2 pizzas. It's like $40. It's 40. It was paid in, I think it was paid in with a British credit card, but I think it worked out to like $42 for 10,000 Bitcoins. I use that price, so that affects the difference. Get some sleep, man. No, I mean we are there. Look, man, we are there. Again, still bugs here, so I got to show this better here on log linear. But this is the point of this analysis. We are there. You know, pick your poison. Do we go lower? Possible. Do we go higher? I'd say more likely than not. So if you're thinking about DCAing, like this is where we are. Right, we're at Laszlo cheap. Right? So with my data going back to Bitcoin Pizza Day, that's set a bottom, and we set a bottom here when Peter Zion was hating on Bitcoin when it was $16,000. He said it was 17,000 overvalued. We're at that range. So, you know, It's always a question of relative risk here. We bounce up, down, but I find it very unlikely we go below this line for a long time. But also, you probably missed this part. You know, I focused on the old rational root. Not to repeat myself too much, but everybody was saying the 4-year cycle was over, right? Block 0, 210, 420, 630. No, sorry. Block 0, 210, 420, 630, 840. That's right. We're getting close to 1 million. I mean, look at the last top. Happens about a year and a half after halving, and then look at the bottoms. People said the 4-year cycle was over. Bitcoin halves every 4 years. It's hard for me to completely dismiss the 4-year argument. Does it mean we exactly bottom a year from now or 8 months from now? No, but I think this is caution zone or slowly accumulate zone. I do not think this is back up the truck zone. This is helping us the most, buying at the low. All fiat currencies clearly struggling when we were buying it, if we were buying at 16,000, right? Gold and silver held their own this cycle, though, to be clear. Still below. They held their own. We'll see. But then again, if you go longer, you know, if you go to a 10-year horizon, everybody should be pretty calm with that picture. And that's a power curve. I'm going to have to drop soon, guys. My daughter's still not well, but who's Carrot Top here? Who are you talking about? Coming up with the zingers. If it's this Carrot Top, yes. Yeah, Zion is just, it's really, really was something to see someone like that who clearly knows geopolitics, clearly understands things, is well read, but has zero understanding of Bitcoin. And when he was calling, you know, when he was saying it was over for Bitcoin here, just, and it's not only about the power curve, right? It's just about the system. It's about address growth, hash rate, transactions. Oh, don't get me started. I was going to try to lay off that this stream. I'm with you. But look, guys, just to leave it on the good news, this is coming. This is my V2 of charts. I'll get you guys some good data where you can play around with this yourselves. You don't have to watch me stream or get up late to watch. I think it's going to be really good. I think you guys will like it. A lot of different charts. Also, the political realm, the monetary realm is here. So we'll be able to compare a lot of things as we move forward. Did I have any? Oh, I did have some. Just to say again, back to the politics. This is wild. Like, if people are worried about where freedom of speech is going in the West, the mirror is, we have a radioactive canary in the coal mine in Russia. So this is a big blow. So government officials, they have this Max app, which is, as they're saying, it's a North Korean style spy app. Not that North Koreans even have phones, as far as I know, but everything that you do, this would be fully centralized within the Kremlin, within the Russian intelligence apparatus. And they've now throttled Telegram. All right, Twitter's banned, Instagram's banned, Facebook, YouTube's throttled for Russians. Telegram, which is a Russian-owned app, even though Durov, the owner, says the servers are outside of Russia. Who knows? Even Telegram, they're throttling. So Russians cannot get information about Russian soldiers on the front. You know, here's an interesting theory, by the way. They want to push armed forces to use Max so that the intelligence community in Russia can find, Ukraine's intelligence agents possible. Because basically, it's going to, I think it's very hard to hide your tracks on Max. Or I don't know how it will work with VPNs, if you can even get through if you have a proxy. But this is, beyond the Starlink, beyond everything else. They're completely demoralized, completely centralized. No freedom of speech. You can't even figure out how your family might be doing on the front because Telegram itself is getting throttled. So the circle is closing on Russians and the guns are pointing inward. Intelligent apparatus is going against its own citizens. We're going to have to see. I just want to leave you here. Good old Estonian foreign intelligence is about the most obvious thing you could possibly think of, but this is where we are. This is the war we're in. And, I'll keep following it. So for the average Joe like you and me, this is the best escape hatch. All right, guys, I do have to go, family reasons, but thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Kurt, for getting up. And everybody else for the comments. Oscar Jukebox, Ghost in the 90s. Take care, guys. I will try to be with you tomorrow. Thank you, Michael.